This is ContactTalkRadio.com. Consciousness in action. And you are taking action into your consciousness by tuning into Contact Talk Radio.
And on TuneIn.com, Ping.fm, and UpSnap Mobile.
Contact Talk Radio.
Long ago, before this day's confusion did begin, throughout the stars did we go wandering. Distance was no barrier, and time it had no hope. Free to come and free to go. Free to come and free to go. Open up the book of stars. Open up the
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Karmic Evolution's Astrologically Speaking. I'm your host, Sherry Horn Hassan of Karmic Evolution Astrology, coming to you on May 6, 2021, from Contact Talk Radio. Just a quick reminder that this show aims to bring you the truth about astrology and your soul's karmic evolution. I'm pleased to announce that today's guest is once again one of my favorite astrologers, Joseph ADDEO, who I will, of course, be introducing properly in just a few minutes. But first, my usual housekeeping stuff. Please note that you can check out my Karmic Evolution Facebook page posts on the current Astro energies, along with my new moon and full moon posts. And also on this Facebook page, you can sign up to receive my new and full moon reports via my Conversations About Consciousness email newsletter. Just go to the left-hand side on the Karmic Evolution Facebook page, scroll down till you hit Join Email List, and it's as simple as that. So also, if you've missed any shows or you want to re-listen to a specific one, and I highly recommend, I interviewed Bruce Schofield last week, and he has a lot of great stuff to say. So I'm going to recommend, if you weren't able to listen to that and you're interested in, his views, and he's really great, just go ahead on to my website at karmicevolution.com, click on radio show in the upper right-hand banner, and scroll down and you can access all of the past recordings of my shows. Now, finally, in addition, I'm continuing to offer my discounted 1-hour Karmic Evolution Natal Insight reading to my listeners for only $99. If you are interested in gaining greater consciousness about your soul's true mission and purpose in this lifetime, if you feel you need to move from chaos to clarity in your relationships, career, finances, health, if you'd like to heal old karmic wounds and co-create your own future happiness and success, and awaken to your true potential and highest destiny in this lifetime, well, that's easy if you take advantage of my special discounted offer again for listeners, a 1-hour Karmic Evolution Natal Insight reading for only $99. Simply email me at Sherry, that's SHERI, at karmicevolution.com and book your reading today. At almost half the regular price, conscious awareness has never been so easy or so affordable. Okay, so let's get on to this week's Astro News you can use. So the monthly lunar cycle's waning now, and the April 26th Scorpio full moon asks us still to continue releasing any resistance to change that prohibits evolutionary growth, both on a personal and a collective level. So when the Sun squared Saturn on May 3rd, it was an opportunity to push through any resistance to letting go of old, outworn values and beliefs so that we can better align ourselves with the currently changing values of the time. Now, in short, because the energy of the Sun square to Saturn was waxing at this last lunation, we were asked to recognize and release where our ego-oriented beliefs about what is of value in our lives and within the greater collective need to change in order for us to successfully adapt, transform, evolve, grow, and thrive into the future. Now, Mercury entered Gemini on May 3rd also, and soon he'll station retrograde in the social sign of communication, curiosity, rudimentary learning, siblings, transportation, and local commerce, and the concept of duality. And he will station retrograde at the end of this month on May 29th. So altogether, and I mentioned this last week, but I'm reiterating it because it's coming up, he will remain in Gemini until July 11th. Even though his retrograde period will take place from May 29th to June 22nd. So the retrograde period is going to be when we have the opportunity to review all things mercurial, how we communicate with others, how we process and perceive information, and in particular, since Mercury's Gemini is the current ruler of the transiting karmic North Node, how we listen to others' perspectives and find out how we can ascertain what is fact and what is merely perception. So this time period now with Mercury in Gemini, including the retrograde, I think this upcoming retrograde is maybe going to be a little bit more fraught, because the collective is clearly at such a pivotal moment now in terms of how we all receive, process, perceive, and believe the information that's collective either proactively or thrown at us by others. So since the Sagittarius South Node, and the nodes are going to shift at the end of this year. They transit about a year and a half, 18, 19 months before they shift. So they regress throughout the zodiac. So the Sagittarius South Node has been asking us for a while to discover if what we think, read, believe is really, actually, factually true. When we combine this with the new Saturn-Pluto cycle that began last year on January 12th of 2020, and we look at the world's politics, for example, we can see that an era, in hindsight, it's becoming easy to see that the era that started at the last Saturn-Pluto cycle, which was the end of 1982 and the beginning of 83, is starting to come to an end, or has, in fact, ended. But, we're still in that new part of the cycle, so we're still coming to terms with the old has ended and have yet to figure out what the new is actually going to be. But there are those who will cling to the older time periods from 82, 83 till 2020, that they cling to those beliefs of that time, like they're, holding on to a life raft in the middle of the ocean after a shipwreck, and therein lies resistance to change, okay? So in other words, if we're still thinking the same things as we did in the 1980s, the 1990s, the 2000s, and all the way up to 2020, can we begin to entertain the notion that change has indeed, in fact, occurred, and that no matter what yesterday's beliefs were, that perhaps they no longer fit our current times? And this is a question upon which we can all meditate if we're attempting to grow in consciousness about ourselves and our positions within society and within the greater collective. So, for example, if trickle-down economics and fiscal austerity no longer work, and big government actually helps people to survive during times like, say, a coronavirus pandemic, why would we still resist increased government spending? This is part of the shift in values that's being brought about by Uranus's longer-term transit through Taurus from 2018 until I think I'm not sure if he dips his toe in Gemini in 2025, but I think he's fully in there by 2026. So we still have a ways to go here. Now, again, the Sun in Taurus told Saturn in Aquarius earlier this week when the Sun squared Saturn that it's willing to move slowly and cautiously with Taurus, but that we have an obligation, Saturn, to humanity as a whole, Aquarius, which in the U.S. at least means to our citizens, and that obligation is to provide resources. So we have Taurus again. I read this morning I think it was something out of Massachusetts, because I get the Boston Globe because my son lives up there. And as you guys may remember me saying, I'm a bit of a news hound. There's still 1.4 million people in that state who are food deprived. So we know that the food lines are beginning to taper from just a few months ago and the end of last year, and things are not quite as dire as more people are getting vaccinated. But on the other hand, there's still a shortage of food for many people. So recognize how these transiting aspects, like the Sun square Saturn, which was set into motion during the last lunation, the Scorpio full moon, how their influence doesn't necessarily just disappear overnight, especially in this case because we have Pluto still transiting through Saturn-ruled Capricorn, at least until 2022 or 2023. So this Sun square Pluto in Capricorn has resonance to the much longer ongoing Pluto transit as well. Now, Venus follows Mercury into Gemini on May 8th, likewise bringing both Venusian values and Geminian communication themes to the forefront. And that's true at least until June 2nd, when she's going to move on to sensitive, protective, nurturing, family-oriented Cancer. But for now, Venus will also resonate to the Mercury in Gemini and the North Node, transiting Gemini North Node, asking us to determine what value our relationships have to us now, especially in this slowly opening post-pandemic world. There isn't a soul, I don't think, alive now who can have their head buried in the sand so deeply that they don't recognize that relationships have altered for many of us, whether it's because we lost somebody or we know somebody who lost somebody. And it doesn't, of course, only have to be related to the pandemic. We also have relationships that have changed. Whether they've changed for the better or for the worse is up to us to decide. But, this is a major theme right now. Now, Venus squares Jupiter on May 8th also, usually a very socially pleasant energy. And with Venus's ingress into Gemini earlier that day, no, I think the square comes first and then a few hours later Venus ingresses into Gemini. It's kind of a nice setup for May 9th, Mother's Day, at least again here in the States. I'm not sure what other countries celebrate Mother's Day or on that date, but the only caution is to watch out for overly indulgent spending and, eating, as this can be a kind of impulsive energy. Now, May 11th will bring us the Taurus New Moon, which occurs at noon Pacific time and 3 p.m. Eastern. And I see I failed to put the degrees, so hold on 1 second because I want to get you that. I think it's 20-something. Hang on. Yeah, 21 degrees, 18 minutes of Taurus. So this lunation will involve a waxing trine of both luminaries to Pluto in Capricorn and Mercury in Gemini's waxing trine to Saturn in Aquarius, and the Sun's sextile in Taurus to Neptune in Pisces. Thus, this seed planting time is going to be about going deep about how to fill the empty space from what we let go of at the Scorpio New Moon, what we released, by planting new seeds around what it is we most value now, so that we can move forward more empowered by changes that allow us to stay current with the energies of the time. So here we have a recipe for inner empowerment on both the emotional level, and the Taurus moon will trine Pluto and Capricorn a little later that night on May 11th after the actual lunation perfects, or early the next morning, depending on your time zone, while the Sun will continue waxing towards its trine to Pluto on May 17th. So together, the message here is that this Taurus new moon is a great time to plant seeds that will blossom into a greater understanding of our individual selves in ways that allow us to continue the evolutionary transformation we're always undergoing, but which has been particularly highlighted by the Scorpio full moon and this upcoming Taurus full moon, both of which strongly echo this zodiacal combination's themes of changing our value system or beliefs in order to adapt to current times. And again, we adapt so that we can transform, so that we can continue to evolve, which is necessary and part of the natural order of things in order to not only survive, but also to thrive. Now, Mars in Cancer sextile to Uranus and Taurus later on May 11th may make us feel a bit restless, but also provides the opportunity for fresh new thinking that can provide the spark needed to propel us towards this evolutionary change in values now. And meanwhile, Mercury completes his trine to Saturn May 12th, which allows us to concentrate on both work and organizational tasks as we honor the Taurus New Moon's request to plant seeds that determine what matters most to us now. We may engage in thorough, detailed work, whether it be related to business or our personal life, and seriousness rather than frivolity will be the name of the game. So critical thinking is particularly highlighted now, which can only bring us to using our minds to discern between perception and cold, hard fact now, which is, again, part of what the transit in karmic nodal axis is trying to point out to us and make us more conscious of now. How do we perceive the information that we take in? From where do we get our information? Are our sources verifiable and factual? Or do we form opinions which are not actually based on fact? We all have opinions and we all have perceptions, and it's a matter of trying to kind of go deep about where those perceptions come from and whether or not we can change them if need be. So when the Taurus Sun sextiles Neptune and Pisces, April 13th, we may intuit the needs of others and be more willing to help them out. So recognize that service to others is a form of self-expression. And as long as we don't deplete our energies in the process, we can be charitable to those less fortunate than ourselves. While our energies may dip a bit, leading up to that day, meditation and creative endeavors can help channel our energies inward rather than outward as we use them to learn more about connecting to the divine realm and to hearing and listening to our own intuition now. And Jupiter enters Pisces late on May 13th, and we will begin the journey of opening up our consciousness to spiritual, collective, and metaphysical energies, at least between then and July 28th, when the King of the Gods will retrograde back again into Aquarius until December, the end of this year, when he'll once again move forward into Pisces for a longer journey there. So this period between May 13th and July 28th is kind of going to be a preview of things to come in 2022 when Jupiter goes back into Pisces again for a longer period. So here to talk about all this and more is Joseph ADDEO. New York City professional astrologer Joseph ADDEO holds a Level 4 certification with the National Council for Geocosmic Research, which is NCGR, and has been an integral part of the New York City astrological community for decades, including serving on NCGR's New York City Board of Directors for 18 years. In March 2021, he was elected to Kepler College's Board of Trustees. Along with his thriving private practice, Joseph is frequently an in-demand lecturer, writer, and teacher who lectures for astrological organizations both throughout the New York metropolitan area and the country. Also a contributing editor for NCGR's e-newsletter, he blogs daily on both Facebook and his website at joeaddeo.com. In addition, Joseph performed as a professional operatic tenor when he graced the world's many stages with his voice for over 20 years. So, Joseph, how are you today, my friend?
Hi, I'm okay. How are you?
I'm good. You must be busy because we're going to talk a little later. You know I'm going to ask you because Joseph has an upcoming webinar on Saturday, so he's probably going nuts right now.
Right. I'm just, what I'm doing, it's what I always do with these kind of webinars. I write like 20 pages of notes, and I'm like, and then I realize I can't just be reading 20 pages of notes. I have to start editing it, and I just have to put it in my consciousness so I can talk extemporaneously. So you know that thing when you have too much information and you have to narrow it down, otherwise you're going to go crazy.
Yeah. Do I ever?
But you really do have to do that so that you can then talk spontaneously, so you have like a little encyclopedia inside you. So that's where I am right now, and but everything's good. It's always nice to speak with you, Sherry. It's great to be on the show.
Oh, same here. You know I love you. So, and you're welcome anytime. So, but anyway, I'm really glad that you were available to be back on the show. So I'm looking forward to talking to you about a couple of things. So first, just let me ask you briefly, if you have any thing that you want to say about this upcoming Taurus New Moon next week on May 11th.
Sure. First of all, it's the day after my birthday, so it's right on my birthday.
Oh, happy almost birthday. We can't say
birthday.
Belated. What's the word for... what's the word for happy before your birthday?
What is the word for happy before your birthday? Happy early birthday, rather. We always say happy belated, happy early.
Exactly. So happy early birthday.
Thank you. So that's the big thing. But this is the first new moon. This is the new moon that enters us into the eclipse period, the 6-week eclipse period, because there's always the eclipse before in this case the lunar eclipse comes first on May 26th. So the first new moon before that is the 2-week period of the build up to the eclipse season, and which lasts about 6 weeks. So this is that eclipse. So this is that new moon. So I would just say to everybody, starting on May 11th, when the new moon comes, you're going to start to feel eclipse seasons always make us feel a little heightened and caffeinated, and things feel worse than they are or better than they are. So everything gets magnified. So I would just say, on a very Taurus level, practicality, be aware of your scheduling starting to shift and how everything's going to rev up a little bit because of the initiation into the eclipse season. That new moon itself, you said a lot of wonderful things. The only thing I would add to that is it's the planet Uranus isn't on the degree of the new moon, but I've been studying so much Hellenistic astrology lately in the last couple of years. Uranus is co-present with that new moon. So Uranus is at 11 degrees Taurus. So next year, it's going to be really close to the lunation. But this year, it's co-present. And Uranus has been in Taurus for quite a while right now. So whenever we have anything happen around the sign of Taurus, which is so laid back and pleasure-seeking and kind of lazy on its downside, and it stays in a rut and doesn't like change and likes its material security, Uranus is saying, hey, we have to shake things up. It's like a martini and putting the ice in and shaking it up. So this new moon with Uranus co-present there, it says, let's shake things up. And with Venus is going to be in Gemini, so the new moon is ruled by Venus in Gemini. I kind of see that as let's shake things up and see what new path of learning are we going to go on. We're in a social situation where everything's about to break open, and Uranus is a planet of breaking open, and Jupiter is going to help that along as she goes into Pisces, and we're going to talk about that soon. But this says, what other paths of learning do I value? I've learned a lot over the new year. With COVID, and this new moon is about our value systems and what brings us material security, and that has to be shaken up a little bit with Uranus just co-present, and with the Venus. Venus is either going to be in Taurus on the new moon, Gemini, or Cancer, or Aries, or Pisces. It can only be in those four signs. Here it's going to be in Gemini, so we have to split our mind into where our security is going, and how with education and the value we put in education, the value we put on the things in our life, how we spend our money, and what new path are we going down. You see lots of people altering their career path and how they make money and how they use their talents. And the Venus in Gemini here is saying is adding to that new road, so to speak, new education. So that's what I would add.
Yeah, that's a great comment, actually, and I'll tell you why. Because my son applied to law school this year, and several things changed. Number one, there were a lot more applicants this year. They surmised because of the pandemic.
Yes.
So people wanting to change their careers, perhaps people who weren't able to fully work at home or, for whatever reason. and also because they changed the way the test is administered. You can now take it at home, and that in turn might have skewed the test scores and made them higher than the norm. So they're looking at that now. Yeah, so my son, not to brag, because, you know, I love him unconditionally.
We should always brag about our children and be proud of them.
Yeah, that's true. He got on a million wait lists for all the top schools.
Wow.
Yeah, he got on the wait list at Columbia, which is the third highest ranked school in the country. But the wait list, you know, don't pad out. He got on the wait list at Georgetown, and he's going. They accepted him. So it's just interesting that you mentioned that, because I think that also anyone with children, you know, from high school on down, obviously has experienced changes in the educational system.
Oh my God, and that's that's with the nodal axis being in Sagittarius and Gemini for the last 19 months, right? All the big shifts with travel, foreign travel, education, transportation, and the eclipses are kind of winding down in those signs. So we'll see kind of resolutions, I would think.
Yeah, me too. Like they'll get it together about now that the end of the school year is approaching. For most states anyway, in June, they'll figure out what they're going to do for the summer and what they're going to do coming September.
Right, and then they have one last chance to figure it all out with the next set of eclipses, because the next solar eclipse in December will still be in Sag, even though the lunar eclipse will be in Taurus. So there you have, I see that Sag, I know I'm jumping the gun here a little bit, but I see that Sagittarius solar eclipse on December as being the summation of the whole last 2 years of eclipses in Sagittarius and Gemini. It's a solar eclipse, so it's a new moon, the new adventure, the new opening, the new let's move on. And now as we go into Scorpio and Taurus, let's really work on the infrastructure, because now we have a new adventure and a new quest, a new path ahead of us.
And that makes sense because also, what do you call it? Scorpio to Taurus North Node is like the damn physical.
Fix the damn infrastructure. Thank God. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah,
fix the damn infrastructure, no matter who's in charge.
Exactly. That should be, instead of it's the economy, stupid. It's like fix the damn infrastructure, stupid.
Well, it kind of reminds me of, and this has nothing to. It kind of reminds me of when FDR was in power. Well, not that I lived that long, but I studied my history a little bit. That was all the reason we came out of the Depression. Whether or not you like FDR, I'm not talking about politics here, but the New Deal and all that stuff put lots of people back to work. And it was all about the infrastructure of society, building roads, building bridges. So it's almost like we have to harken back a little bit to another New Deal, sort of. Again, I don't know.
That's what they're saying. And my mom and both my parents were born in 27, but my mother remembers as a young child having friends whose fathers were put to work by the WPA, which is I forget, Works Progress Administration.
Right, exactly.
They actually literally cleaned streets and things like that. But back then, everyone was happy to do that to get a paycheck. Nobody got not nobody, but a lot of people were just like, just give me good, honest work and pay me for it. So
right, it was the group consensus. What was good for the group here, and we're back to sort of that now. What's good for the group? Is it good for the group to get vaccinated? Is a group, what's herd mentality is not just. They always talked about the herd mentality in terms of the virus, and if the more it's around people, but there's also herd mentality and mentally what we do. Are more people going to get vaccinated, or is it what's the majority group here, the rule about the Aquarius kind of stuff?
I was just thinking that I was watching a news show. I watch MSNBC, so there's probably someone on it. I think it was somebody being interviewed, and the question they were asked was about, it was actually Anthony Fauci, Dr. Fauci, I think. Mm-hmm. They asked him about herd immunity, but the broadcaster used herd mentality by accident. So
I think that's a great slip. That made me
go, oh, wait a minute. That's Saturn square Uranus.
Yes,
it's not herd immunity only. It's herd mentality.
I was going to talk about that on my webinars. Yes,
cool.
It's herd mentality as much, if not more, than just herd immunity, right?
Right.
Because of the sign of Aquarius.
One actually determines the other.
Right. And I mean, I know we have other things to talk about, but just because you talk about it's also the herd mentality of do you belong to my group? If you don't belong to my group, I'm not going to let you in. Watch what happens when society starts opening. And if they allow, and with nightclubs and entertainment and big venues, do you have your card? Were you vaccinated? If you weren't vaccinated, we're not going to let you in. You're going to see a lot of herd mentality there, whether or not you like that kind of thinking or not. And you're going to have, I tend to steer more liberally, as people know. But even my liberal friend, I don't like what some of my liberal friends are saying. So like you're going to have people saying stuff like, if they're, you know how everybody got really pissed off in the gay community when they got mad in the Midwest when they wouldn't serve the birthday cake for people.
Yes,
you can't come into my store. This is against my religious values. This is against my religious principles. Well, now you're going to see liberal-minded people kind of do the reverse and say, you can't come into our nightclub. I don't care if you are, you can't come into our nightclub because you're not vaccinated, and we have rules, and it goes against my belief system, Sagittarius, to have you come in. So I'm not promoting anything as right or wrong here. I know where I stand. I'm just talking about the astrology. You're going to see that same mentality working back and forth, whether you're liberal or conservative or Democrat, Republican.
We are so on the same wavelength, and that's why I love you. Because why wouldn't I, right? If you're on my wavelength, just a little bit of ego in that. But the other thing, and I'm off topic too, so we'll get back to the questions in a second. But I agree with you 100% because the whole vaccine passport thing is going to create another polarization.
Another polarization. I couldn't have said it better. Yep. Yeah.
And I was just reading about this Liz Cheney stuff, who is the one of the Republicans who voted for impeachment with Trump.
Exactly. That's another part of the equation. You're so good to bring that up.
Somebody wrote an editorial, which I think I'm going to post on Facebook. Charles Blow, I think is his name, from the New York Times.
Oh, yes, Charles Blow. I know him, yeah.
Yeah, because the headline was something like, oh, right, Liz Cheney, like we're supposed to all, think you're a hero now. And he goes into the things that she objected to and how, a lot of these Republicans helped create the scenario that exists now. And she's one of them for sure, And so it's like all of a sudden, all these people, it's like saying George W. Bush, who started a war over nothing because there were no WMDs, weapons of mass destruction, and then condoned torture, is a hero now because he spoke out against Trump.
Right.
And that's like, excuse me? And that's part of really what we're talking about, or what these lunations are talking about when we're talking about Taurus and Scorpio with values. It's like, look how it's 1984. It's doublespeak. It's turned on its head. It's like people that, like you were saying, it's like liberals don't like the conservative GOP for years and years and years, and now the conservative GOP is becoming the liberals' heroes. Well, talk about turning the world upside down, right? Because it's like forgetting all the crimes that were committed and it's like saying, you save someone's life, you're on death row, and somehow or other you save someone's life in jail, and now you're a hero. But they forget, did you forget that you murdered, that you're a serial murderer,
Right. But then even on a social level, it's like, who has the right to ostracize anybody from the group just because of their belief systems? That's going to be the bigger question here. With until we figure out the pandemic totally, is it right to ostracize people for not coming into can you as a business owner say don't enter my business unless you prove that you've been vaccinated if you don't want to get vaccinated? I mean, that's going to be a very tricky question.
Yeah, it is. And that leads to my next question for you, which is about Jupiter entering Pisces next week on May 13th.
Jupiter entering Pisces.
Yeah, and Jupiter's, to me,
now, you could see what's going on in the news with that. I mean, Jupiter finally is going to enter a sign of its dignity, right? Jupiter rules two signs, Sag and Pisces. I do like to use the ancient rulerships. They work very well. But Jupiter now is going to be free of the restrictions of Saturn, because in Aquarius, traditionally it has to answer to Saturn. Now in Pisces, it doesn't have to answer to anybody but itself. So Jupiter has more dignity. It has more power. It can do whatever it wants. It can get what it wants. And the minute it's going into Pisces, look what's the announcements we've had in the last week. They're open, especially here in New York, but I'm sure everywhere. Things like this are happening. They're opening the subways 24/7. The Broadway theaters are going to be open at 100% capacity in September. They're making all these announcements. They're opening up everything's open, everything's spreading. Jupiter and Pisces, I have free reign now. We can open, we can spread, we can move forward because I don't have to answer to my parent Saturn. I'm not restricted. I can act with more freedom, more independence, more confidence. I'm not being reined in by a parental figure. And it's the greater benefic coming into a sign where it has more resources, a larger voice of expression. This is going to be probably more spending of money. This is probably going to be more rapid trying to get the vaccine out. But again, there's going to be a real glitch here with Mercury going into Gemini is going to be in dignity too. So that's going to be adding on to a lot of stuff. But it's going to have a real backfire probably in June because Mercury's going to go retrograde. And Mercury's going to go retrograde in square to Neptune. And it's going to be in square to Neptune for through July. And so this thing that we're seeing now with everything opening and everything moving forward and freedom of movement and travel internationally and more foreign things opening up. Watch what happens in the early part of the summer in June when the Mercury retrograde hits and Mercury starts squaring Neptune. There's going to be, I think it's going to be a little bit of a backfire. Maybe not horrible, but just, oh my God, the subway system's overcrowded now. We haven't really prepared for the open. Everything's going so fast that there'll be glitches. The Mercury retrograde will just say glitches. It's like we didn't the overstressing of the transportation system, the overburdening of the transportation system, have the education system. So the Jupiter in Pisces is going to be really good, and also it's going to be a nice big chunk into Pisces for May, June, July, and through May, June, and July. So you have to look at this as a preview of what it's going to be for you in January. So, and because Jupiter is in dignity here, it should be something very positive for everybody in certain parts of their life. And also, and it's going to really give you, depending on what house it's in your chart, a window of opportunity to break out and break free and to move forward. That's going to shine more strongly in 2022. It's also going to be a call to society to answer stuff that's going on in India and how we are compassionate and how we how charitable we are with Jupiter and Pisces.
Well, let me ask you a question too, because what you made me think of is that as we go into the Jupiter and Pisces period now, and given what you said about Mercury retrograde, and glitches, do you think that, because what comes to my mind is that during that period, particularly Mercury retrograde and squaring Neptune, when we're more open, the glitches that we'll see will be with our infrastructure. So you mentioned transportation, you mentioned school, education, so that when it goes back into Aquarius for the rest of the year from July through December, maybe we'll have more of the opportunity and while the nodes are still ruled by Jupiter and also Mercury's Gemini, right? While Mercury's going through that'll only be through July for both of them, that will spark more of the conversations that will allow more people to endorse, putting Uranus in Taurus monies towards.
Well, right, because as Jupiter in Pisces is going to show us some very positive things, as well as also some confusing things that need to be fixed. And so when Jupiter retrogrades back into Aquarius, let's put some money back into the coffers for infrastructure. And we got a glimpse of Jupiter in Pisces of what needs to be healed. And now let's put the money back where it is, where our mouth is. It's that, and so I agree with that. And Jupiter's about synthesis, and in Pisces it's about synthesizing far-reaching and deeply embedded belief systems, and in our compassion and our charity work. And also, I think it's Jupiter in Pisces, even though it's a good thing, we have to be careful. The negative side of that would be, because Jupiter in Pisces would be great for the medical community, right? The expansion of medicine and nurses and doctors and all the outreach there. But it's also the spread of things. And when Jupiter has dignity in Pisces, the spreading of everything can go very, very quickly. But you could be spreading the disease could be spreading quickly too, in terms of other strains, right? That we don't see. So look what's happening in countries like India. It has rapid growth to spread in Pisces because it's unbridled. It's not restricted. So there is a downside to this. If something is unbridled and you can go after it with all your confidence and heart, well, we have to be careful with the variance here. With Jupiter going into Pisces, I would say.
Agreed. I think also there can be more of a tendency to potentially, well, two things come to mind. One is that as above, so below. If, in fact, this period that you're discussing does throw a spotlight on the glitches in these areas, and then when, as we move through the year, there's more, there's more support for fixing our infrastructure, that the message, that's a collective message, right, and a societal one. But if we're looking at our personal lives, where do we need to fix our infrastructure? So when you mentioned Jupiter going through a particular house, it's like, do we need to fix our infrastructure in the first house? Do we need to fix it in the seventh, or whatever, wherever it's going through our chart?
Right.
Because that would seem to make sense to me.
Right. And if you look at the Sibley chart in whole sign houses, Jupiter in Pisces is our fourth house. So charity begins at home. In the Sibley chart, charity begins at home, and we have Sag rising, so it's even more important. Let's take care of our home, our infrastructure. Let's be charitable to our own people. Right,
and that's been in play also with the Sag South node for the past year or so.
Yes.
Yeah, interesting. Well, you mentioned earlier that we got a pair of eclipses coming up, and the first one is the May 26th Sagittarius Full Moon, which I think is a total lunar eclipse, right? And then the next one on June 10th, which is a Gemini New Moon Solar eclipse. But let's start with the Sag lunar eclipse. What you started to sort of go into it a little bit, but what's the major message for us here, do you think? And especially again, since you just pointed out that Jupiter actually rules the U.S. Sibley chart, right? It's the chart ruler and also the ruler of the South Node while it's still transiting through the sign of Sag.
Right. Well, on the last set of eclipses in November, December, and in tandem with the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in Aquarius, we had major breakthroughs and with the vaccine, and Sagittarius and Gemini have a lot to do with disseminating information, getting facts, and then reaching out and spreading the information. So here we have the next set of eclipses. So this set of eclipses is going to say, how are we doing with the vaccine and getting the facts out there and spreading the word. The lunar eclipse in Sagittarius is spreading the word. It's about foreign travel. And now that eclipse is being ruled by Jupiter in Pisces, having just gone to Pisces. Travel is free to open up again. Foreign travel, going long places. You're going to see people very much more free to do things, to have independence, to have freedom, to go out, to have quests, to go have adventures on that lunar eclipse. It's again, and we were just talking about your sun and universities, and Sagittarius is a university-driven sign. So we're going to see what new law, what the laws are going to, how the laws are going to change around universities and all education, and how the laws are just going to change in general as we start to open things up.
Actually, not to interrupt you, but that's so interesting because I've been seeing articles also about the dilemma that universities across the country are going to have about requiring that their students coming back to campus are vaccinated.
Yeah.
So exactly what you were talking about more locally, or in terms of business, is going to happen on college campuses and universities also. Yeah.
The minute we had the eclipses start in Sagittarius and Gemini a year and a half ago, the local Sagittarius is the foreign neighborhoods, Gemini is the local neighborhood. If a pandemic hits, the local neighborhood becomes everything. The Gemini stuff becomes everything. The local news, how we walk around the neighborhood, what we do here, because we're restricted from traveling. Sagittarius, we don't have a broader thing. Well, now the eclipses are starting to wind down in this polarity. Right. This is going to be the last one where they're both in this mutable polarity. And the Sagittarius lunar eclipses don't fence me in. I want open borders. I want to move without restriction. I want to get away from my local community. I've been sick and tired of having to stay in my local community. I want to go out to the farm.
I love my neighbors, but
I love my neighbors,
I could
but I've had
entertain
enough.
talking to someone new.
Right. So, I think, and
well, immigration, my dear. That's perfect for what's going on with that right now, too.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Immigration. I mean, communicating at a distance, everything we've been doing, but now it's, this is the summer that people are going to start to feel more confident to move around. And let's just see if there are little prices to pay for that, because of the eclipse is happening while Mercury's retrograde in Gemini, which is good, but it's, the solar eclipse comes on June 10th at Gemini, so that's just, new information coming in, it's sorting the facts. Gemini likes the facts. Sagittarius likes the truth. There's a big difference. My truth is different than your truth. Truth isn't always factual. Truth is what, they always say the law, if you don't like the law, change it because the law is mutable. Just because the law says it's right doesn't necessarily mean it's a fact. But
that's
Gemini
a great point. Joseph, I want to pause you. That's a great point. So thank you for making it.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you, Sherry.
I think I've mentioned this on this show before, and I don't know if it's in context of talking to you or not, but there's a quote from Jesus Christ Superstar, and I know you love movies
and musicals, yes.
Where Pontius Pilate says to Jesus Christ, "But what is truth? Is truth a changing law? We both have truths. Are mine the same as yours?" So that encapsulates exactly what you're saying. So
exactly.
Thanks for giving me the opportunity to say that.
No, you're welcome. That's why I love talking to you. We spur each other. It's nice to spur each other on. But again, this polarity of signs as it's winding up is, everybody's had to redefine their philosophies, their religion, their belief systems. They've had to listen to facts or fiction and separate the facts from the fiction. And the problem with this set of eclipses is it's in that polarity of trying to get facts and information and making a philosophy out of it, and trying to discern the truth. But the square of Mercury to Neptune is going to obfuscate a little more, right? It's going to continue, we've had Donald Trump still being banned from Facebook, right? They came down with all this, but how's he going to go behind the scenes and manipulate his, branding, his branding. And we all have the opportunity to do that with Mercury square Neptune. We all have the opportunity. I'm using Donald Trump because he's a president.
Time to rebrand. Yeah, I love
time to rebrand. And Mercury square Neptune is like a used car salesman. I can make you believe whatever I want you to believe.
Right,
Mercury square Neptune. I don't necessarily, I don't care if you think this isn't. I'm going to make you jump off the Brooklyn Bridge if I want to, even though it's bad for you. So that's how
right. On the flip side of that, though, there's that concept in sales where, especially for people who are doing things like astrology, metaphysics, holistic endeavors, it's like you sell them what they want, but you give them what they need.
Right.
So ascertaining what people need. But that's the Mercury square Neptune, too.
And how do we use words, right? The Mercury square Neptune, it's a square. But you can use beautifully for people who are poets, people who are tunesmiths, people who write music, people, who want to get to the poetry of something or philosophy of something. It's a beautiful aspect. It doesn't have to always be about lying and deception. It's a very artistic kind of thing. And, there's, if you put the work in it, it's very, very beautiful. Meditation, right? Meditation, yoga.
Meditation,
that would be Mercury square Neptune.
Channeling, Reiki, anything that has to do with energy flowing through.
And the way we do when we talk to our clients, we can use that square to use poetic metaphors.
Yep.
I talk to clients all the time, and sometimes, oh God, how am I going to get this point? And I go, there's a myth. This myth explains a lot of what you're going through. And then Mercury square Neptune is beautiful because you're giving a metaphor, a mythology, some other kind of way rather than just the plain facts, something that highlights it and makes it more noble, so to speak.
Exactly. So, Joseph, we have probably about, 8 minutes left, but I want to give you time to talk more about your upcoming Zoom webinar, because we've touched on a few things that I know you're going to cover, but I know you're going to cover them in much greater depth. So I just wanted to let everybody know the title is The Astrology of 2021, June through September, and the webinar's on Saturday. So give us some insight on what you'll be covering and, what
Thank you,
we
Sherry.
haven't covered here.
Thanks for the opportunity. This is like the bookend to what I did at the end of 2020. I did a webinar in December about the first 6 months of 2021. So this is going to bookend that. I'm going to basically talk about the major planetary ingresses, lunations like eclipses, configurations like Saturn squared Uranus, and I'm going to go month by month and highlight what the weather's going to be and where everybody can kind of see peak energy time periods and when there's lulls, so everybody gets a little weather forecast. I'm really going to start. I'm going to talk about. I'm going to like frame the whole thing into the major configurations we have in the last 2 years. So I'm going to give a brief overview of the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, and then the Saturn square Uranus that permeates this whole year. And then I'll go month by month into the astrological forecasts. And, I encourage people to maybe have their birth charts with them. So as I'm talking about stuff, they can put into trances of where the trances are happening in their own chart so they can personalize it a little bit. And so that's going to be this Saturday, May 8th, from 1 o'clock to 3:30 p.m. Eastern time. It's going to be a Zoom webinar. People who are interested could contact me at my email address, joeaddeo@yahoo.com. That's joeaddeo@yahoo.com. And it's a $30 fee for the webinar. It'll be on Zoom. And if you can't attend, you can order it, and I'll be sending out recordings to people who can't attend as well. So it's a great way to kind of just map out, the road ahead for the year, and when the eclipses happen, when the ingresses happen, when things peak, and so it's
I think you said you're also going to talk about, because I think it's important too, and I know you're going to cover it, like the Mercury. We talked about the Mercury and Gemini retrograde, but there's going to be, I don't know, is it 2 more for this year?
We're going to have this.
I'll
be talking, for the rest of the year. That we have a Mercury retrograde in September. 27 Libra. Like all the Mercury retrogrades this year have been the air signs, right? So, I'll definitely cover the Mercury retrogrades. I'll be talking about the Venus retrograde coming up at the very end of the year, because this Venus retrograde is going to harken back to the end of 2013, because Venus has that wonderful, wonderful predictive thing where every 8 years she retrogrades in the same exact part of the zodiac with just like a degree or 2 off. So 8 years ago, in December of 2013, into the beginning of 2014, she retrograded at about 27 degrees of Capricorn. And so that's where she's retrograding this year. So I'll make sure I'm going to include that.
Right. And sensitive degrees, which I assume
sensitive degrees, like the planetary stations, like the retrograde and direct movements of Saturn and Uranus and Neptune and Pluto and all that stuff. And the eclipses, definitely, right. And I'll tie a lot of stuff into the current, COVID stuff and what's happening on a general level with society too.
Well, those of you listening who love Joseph as much as I do, and it's Joe ADDEO, ADDEO, right, Joe? At yahoo.com?
At yahoo.com, that's my email. And my website is Joseph ADDEO, so I'm sorry for that confusion. But if you check out my website, it's josephaddeo.com. But my email is joeaddeo@yahoo. So just
do they have to email you, or can they go to your website to sign up for the webinar? Or
it's better to email me. It'll be much quicker. I'll get it directly, and then I can respond, because I'll need to get the person's email so I can send them the Zoom link tomorrow night. So if you sign up before tomorrow night, I'll respond to you right away. You can pay on Venmo or PayPal. If you're confused, just email me. I'll tell you how to do that. And I'll send you the link tomorrow night, so you'll have the link for the website, for the webinar.
That's fabulous. And you have someone else on with you, is that right? Or
Denise Menton. Denise Menton is a colleague of mine who has been monitoring and helping me out with this, and she's a very good tarot reader and astrologer, so I'm going to bounce questions off her and she can ask me questions, so we have an open dialogue.
Excellent. And so those are the ways people can reach you as well if they'd like a reading from you? Or
absolutely. That's exactly the way to reach me, too. By either, you can reach me by my email address or through my website. There's a contact page there, and you can reach me there.
Okay, and you post weekly, you said, right, on your Facebook page?
Yeah, I post weekly on my Facebook. I post weekly. I have my Facebook page, Joseph ADDEO Astrologer. I post constantly on there. I do the same blogging on my website, so it kind of repeats there. And if some people are not on Facebook, they can catch my blogging on my website. So all the bases are covered there. And yeah, I'm constantly doing my private readings. Love to do them, and you can check out my pricing and what I offer on my website.
That's fabulous. Thank you, my dear. I'm glad you got everything in, and I didn't have to rush you.
No, thank you, Sherry. I really love the opportunity, and thank you for letting me come on right before my webinar.
Sweetheart,
it's really lovely.
any time. You're always welcome. And I'll be hitting you up in a few months to come back on because I'm not a liar. You are one of my favorites. So
thank you. You're the best.
Yeah, no.
I love it. No.
Good luck with the webinar. How's your mom, by the way, real quick? I'm going to bore everybody.
Big operation coming up next week. But I could have used her as an example of my own chart. But big operation coming up next week. So say prayers for her. Major knee replacement.
I was just going to say, can we ask everyone to send healing and prayers?
Yeah, healing thoughts for my 88-year-old mom. Thank you.
Terrific.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Just to say really quickly how all my eclipses in last December hit my moon very harsh. And so this whole 6 months has been dealing with my mother, and Neptune is squaring my moon now by transit. So the pain and suffering of my mother, the health of my mother, it's very interesting, the astrology. Anyway, that's I might share some of that in my webinar, how astrology works in tandem with the eclipses and transits. So it's very interesting. Sorry, thank you, Sherry.
Very cool. Well, good luck to her. Yeah,
thank you.
Sending healing energy and prayers. Okay, well, I look forward to having you on again in the not-too-distant future. And thank you, Joseph, and thanks to everyone else for joining us today. I hope you found the information presented here helpful as you continue your karmic evolution in this lifetime. Please be sure to join me next week on May 13th for another episode of Karmic Evolutions, Astrologically Speaking, when my guest will be professional astrologer Marina Orms. Till then, may your journey be filled with karmic healing and the joy of greater consciousness. Namaste.
Long ago, before this day's confusion did begin, throughout the stars did we go wandering. Distance was